Well, welcome to Aussie Wedding TV, and today I'm with Alvin and we're going to be talking about reception venues and catering. Welcome, Alvin.
How are we?
Good, thanks for your time. Now, your venue is?
Gosford Golf and Function Centre.
Okay, and your catering division?
Perfection Wedding Catering.
Now, they're two different divisions?
Yep. Two different divisions, both dedicated to wedding services. One is an off-site type service, where we can do it at surf clubs, marquees, at your house.
Okay, so you don't have to just go to Gosford, to the club to have your wedding?
You might have got the perfect location, now you want the perfect service and food.
So you supply waiters and waitresses. Do you supply like the drink as well? Is that part of a catering package?
We can.
Or is it just food?
We can. It depends on the venue. Sometimes the venue is licensed, like the surf clubs are licensed.
Right.
And we can provide drink service from the bar to the table. I guess the surf clubs generally provide bar staff.
Yes.
So we can do that table service if they want that extra quality service.
Okay.
Now, if it's at their house, we can provide the alcohol.
Yes.
We can provide the bar stuff. We can provide the furniture. We can provide decorations. Wow. Pretty much everything.
A one-stop shop. And is it just on the Central Coast that you provide this service?
We do travel outside the Central Coast. There is, I guess, size requirements, mainly for marquee weddings of 100 or more.
Sure.
Now, a lot of our brides, however, do come up to the Central Coast from Sydney.
Okay. So they live in Sydney, but they choose to get married on the Central Coast.
Well, why not? The Central Coast is beautiful surf club venues.
I love it. I love the Central Coast. It's beautiful. And it's not that far. I mean, people don't realise that it's such a short trip on the F3, straight from Sydney, up to the Central Coast.
Well, if you live in Western Sydney, it's probably quicker to get married at a surf club on the Central Coast than to go to the eastern suburbs.
Yeah, or to the city.
Absolutely.
And also I think too you've got your parking costs on top of that as well, which can be expensive in the city.
Not only parking costs, but can you imagine the price difference between a surf club on the Central Coast to Bondi Surf Club?
Yeah,
Massive
you can have
difference.
a really big honeymoon with all those,
Absolutely.
with all the savings.
And that's without thinking about your guests. Your guests, if you're getting married at Bondi Surf Club, they have to find accommodation close by, and Bondi is incredibly expensive
it's pretty dear
compared to the Central Coast.
Wow, so there's a few
Absolutely.
pluses for coming up to the good old Central Coast, isn't there? Now, when it comes to catering, do you do things like, finger foods and, I mean, these days they're really called canapes, aren't they?
Absolutely. We can do a finger food or a cocktail style reception, a buffet style reception, a barbecue style reception, or even like most popular still sit down. You do
buffet style as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is becoming increasingly popular because people want to give their guests choice.
Look, it's funny, but I sort of am at a lot of weddings with photography, and I find that when it's finger foods or canapes, a lot of times the finger foods are so big that you kind of got to have two hands, and I kind of think a finger food should sort of be able to be held with one hand. Is that something if someone said, oh, well, I just want my finger foods to be small? Do you get brides ever ask that? Or are they just telling me that at the receptions?
I don't know. It's not really a question I've ever been asked. But about the buffets, I think it's an interesting trend that in the United States, buffets are very, very popular wedding choice. So I think it's starting to change where we're still catching up to them.
Wow, because I think here in Australia it's the opposite. I would say that buffet is a secondary choice to a sit-down dinner, and we do tend to follow America in our trends.
That's correct.
We're just a bit slower, aren't we?
That's right.
So Alvin's prediction is that the buffet style is going to come in, and there you go, you've heard it here live. Alvin's prediction, let's wait and see. And what we were talking about before was, okay, what if someone wants a beachside wedding? You're not actually by the beach, are you? No,
we'll travel to whichever beach they want, as long as they're not, that venue doesn't have an exclusive caterer.
Okay, and you're not far from the beach anyway from where you are there?
No, not at Gosford Golf. Now, they don't have to wait till they've got a venue to actually contact us. Because we're so familiar with a lot of different venues, they can actually contact us prior, and we can actually help them select a venue.
Okay, and look, I think too, sometimes people just don't know where to start. They and I think they can put out so many feelers to so many different places that it just becomes confusing.
That's right.
Do you get people come to you just going, help, Alvin, what do we do?
Yep, we'll sit down with them. We can come out to their house, sit down with them where they're comfortable.
Oh, so you'll go to them?
Absolutely.
That's good service.
What we find these days is people are so busy, they can't come to us, you know, they might have kids at home, they work so much, it's very hard to match conflicting schedules between the partners as well. So we find it sometimes easier to come to their house where they've settled the kids down after dinner, they're relaxed, and we'll just go through, ask them what they want, we'll ask them a series of questions, build a profile for their ideal wedding, help them work out a budget, and then we'll give them some options available.
Yeah, I think when people are at home too, they feel a bit more at ease. So, you know, they're not sort of in that work mode, which is really important.
Well, we're trying to bring the wedding service into the modern world, much like Aussie Home Loans did with bank loans. And, you know, prior to that, you'd have to go to the bank to get a
they really
a home loan.
revolutionised that, didn't they?
Absolutely.
So, okay, when you're at a venue, I think what's fantastic is your guests just come to one venue. So it means they park the car, they're there for the day. So they can get married in the garden. And what happens if all of a sudden the dreaded happens and it rains on your wedding day? What happens then?
Is this at Gosford Golf?
Yeah.
Well, at Gosford Golf, we're very lucky, and we've got a wonderful option about open terrace.
Okay.
So it's fully covered, still beautiful views of the mountains and the course.
Oh, great.
So it's not like you're stuck in
You've got a good plan B.
Yeah.
And do most venues and reception places have sort of a plan B option for couples? If they're,
Some do, some don't.
do they have to look into that, don't they?
That's a really important factor, and you know, some places their only option is to go into the reception room, which I think is a bit of an afterthought type backup plan. Even with the surf clubs, that's a really important option because a lot of them want to get married on the beach outside and stuff like that. So having a really good covered terrace is a very good selling point for those venues.
Sure. So no matter how good the venue is for a couple, they really have to consider what is the plan B if it rains, because the thing is, it doesn't just rain in winter. Quite often we find we get more weddings rain out when
well,
it's
if
not
you
in
think
winter.
about these things, it creates less stress.
Yes.
Because there's nothing worse than you don't have a backup plan, and then if you see the weather report is going to rain on your wedding day, and you're scrambling to find suggestions. And you know, I had that not that long ago, whereby the bride didn't have a backup plan, so she contacted me and wanted some suggestions. So I had to organise one for her, which was lucky because it was probably the biggest storm Sydney's seen in probably 5 years.
Oh wow, that was probably about 2 months ago, 3 months ago? Because I remember that well here. It was just outrageous.
And she'd actually, we booked her in at Nora Head Lighthouse for her ceremony. But when asked if she wanted a contingency, at that stage she didn't want to consider it.
Wow, it's normally pretty windy near lighthouses. If you think about it, it's pretty windy.
Yeah.
And look, just a couple of questions on food for receptions, because you got to think about it. As a photographer, I'm kind of with the guests, and I hear what everyone says when we're at venues and talking about the food and what they're whinging about and what they like and what they don't like. And you know, you hear things about when people have order, for example, they have steak on the menu, and it's very hard to please everyone because someone likes their steak well done, someone likes it. How do you cater for that sort of thing? Like, would you say to someone that there are certain foods you recommend, like chicken rather than steak or rather than fish?
The most popular options still are the chicken and steak options.
Yeah.
Generally, most venues will do their steaks medium.
Okay.
Just to
They'll
cover
generally
all bases.
please most people.
Generally, medium to medium well is the most common way that venues would do their steak. Chicken is obviously a very safe option. Then you've got some meals that might be a bit, a bit more adventurous for some guests, and we'd just make sure that the bride and groom were aware of that.
Yeah.
Things like duck, which some people like a lot.
Yeah.
Some people just wouldn't eat. So.
Look, I think there's the thing is a bride and a groom, a couple, can sort of say, well, we really love adventurous food, but they have to remember the majority of people have a fairly plain food palate. So you've got to think of your guests. As much as you want to do what you want to do, you really have to think of your guests.
That's correct. And as long as your guests are happy with duck, we had a wedding at Shelley Beach Surf Club where they wanted the duck, and I suggested they consider the guests, and they said, oh, all their guests are chefs.
Oh, there
So
you
that
go.
was fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and it worked
think
out really well.
as long as you just got to remember, yes, it's your wedding day, but also, you know, you're doing it for your guests and you want to make sure that they love all the food and, you know, you spent a lot of money on it and you want to make sure everyone enjoys it. So, look, thanks, Alvin, for your time today. I know
My
you're a
pleasure.
very busy man. If there's something we maybe haven't covered today about reception venues, about catering, if you've got a question, just visit us and drop us a message on our Facebook page and I'll get back to Alvin and I'll get back to you with an answer. Thanks, Alvin.
Okay, my pleasure.